Hi everyone, today we're going to be doing Module 2, Lesson 20, and for today's lesson we are going to continue dividing just like we did from Lesson 19. So let's go ahead and get started with this problem and make sure you have your Module 2, Lesson 20 notes in front of you. So today we're going to start with this problem, 72 divided by 21. We are going to use the same three steps from the previous lesson, so let's go ahead and start with estimating this. So remember, these two kind of like squiggly lines let us know that this is what our answer is going to be about. It is not my exact answer. Remember, there's probably going to be those two spaces there on your notes. And then we're just going to take this number right here. And normally, whatever that number is, I would just write it like that. I would just take the divisor and write it down. But now I have divisors that are not ending in zeros, so I need to pick a number that ends in a zero. So either 20 or 30, and think about what would work best. Well, when I look at 72 divided by 21, I think if I were to round it to 20, it would be a lot easier for me because there's more factors that are closer to 72 that I could round that 72 to. And I'm going to show you why that is. So when I look at my, I wrote my 20 here, so I changed 21 to 20, and now just like the last lesson, I'm going to list out my factors of 20 and see which one is closest to 72. So I have 20, 40, 60, and 80. So when I look at those multiples of 20, and I think about, well, which one is closest to 72. Technically 80 is closest to 72, but I really don't want to go over my dividends because then that answer, this estimate that I'm coming up with, might not actually work with the problem that I eventually try to solve. So I usually want to try and pick the one that does not go over. Just like when we're dividing, I don't want to go over, I just want to get as close as possible without going over. So I'm going to choose this 60 because 60 is as closest to 72 as I can get without going over. So now I have the problem 60 divided by 20. So our estimate is changing up just a little bit. Then just like the lesson 16 way we learned to divide our numbers, I can cross off those zeros. And that leaves me with 6 divided by 2, which equals 3. So that lets me know that my answer is going to be somewhere around 3. So let's go ahead and actually solve this now with our standard algorithm. So I have 72 divided by 21. And my first step is I need to see how many times can 21 fit into 72, or how many groups of 21 can fit into 72. Well, I think I'm going to start with my estimate of 3 because that sounds like a good place to start. So I'm going to start with 3. And now I'm going to think, what is 21 times 3? Well, I know that 1 times 3 is 3. So I multiplied my ones place, and I got 3 right there. Then I'm going to multiply this 2 in the tens place by 3. So I have 2 times 3. And that leaves me with 6, which gives me 63. 63 does not go over this 72 dividend that I started with. So this is perfect, and now I can start subtracting. If I chose that 4, if I change this to 80 divided by 20, that would give me a 4 up here, and you would see that that is way too big. So let's go ahead and subtract. I can't do 2 minus 3, so I need to cross off this 2, borrow from the 7, make the 7 a 6, and make the 2 a 12. Then I do 12 minus 3, which is 9. And just like the last lessons, if you come up with a remainder, you can just write remainder 9. We're not going to be writing these as decimals just yet. So my final answer is going to be 3 remainder 9, which is very close to my estimates. And now I need to check my answers. Remember, we kind of just take everything from the outside of the standard algorithm. So I start by multiplying my divisor times my quotient, which is my answer. So 21 times 3 is 63, and then I take that answer and I add my remainder, so 63 plus 9. And remember, when you get to this part, if you can't add going like that straight across, then just go ahead and quickly set up a little problem up and down to help you answer it. So 3 plus 9 is 12, carry the 1, leave the 2, and 1 plus 6 is 7. and 72 matches my original dividend of 72, so I know my answer is correct, and I correct my final answer up on the line. So as you can see, the problems are still very similar. The only thing that's really different is the way that we are estimating. So let's move on to our next problem now. We're still going to be estimating, dividing, and checking, but we're going to have some different types of numbers to work with. So we're now going to be doing 94 divided by 43. So let's go ahead and start estimating this problem. So remember, I have like the little squiggly lines, so that lets me know that my answer is going to be about this much. I have a space divided by another space. And remember, I need to round this number, this 43, because I'm not just going to write 43 right here, because that would be difficult for me to estimate and divide. So I need to change this number to something that I could easily divide by. So I'm going to try 40 and think about what are my multiples of 40. So my multiples of 40 would be 40, 80, and then 120. Now I know that 120 is way too big because that goes over my dividend of 94, so I really don't want to make that 120. 80 though would be perfect because it is below 94 and it is really close to 94. So I'm going to change this 94 to 80 in my estimates, and then I'm going to solve for 80 divided by 40 to get close to where my answer should be. So I'm going to cross out this 0, cross out this 0, and then this problem becomes 8 divided by 4, and 8 divided by 4 equals 2. So that tells me that my answer is going to be about 2. Now let's see if we can actually get this answer. So we're going to do 94 divided by 43. So I'm going to start by trying out that estimate up in my quotient. So I'm going to do 43 times 2 and see if that fits into 94. So I'm going to start with my ones place. I have 3 times 2, and 3 times 2 is 6, so I place that in this ones place. And then I do 4 times 2, which is 8, and I put that in the tens place. Now I can subtract because I can do 94 minus 86. It's always good to check the second number to make sure that it is smaller than what you are trying to subtract it from. And now we can subtract. I can't do 4 minus 6. I need to cross out the 4, cross off that 9. The 9 becomes an 8, and this 4 becomes a 14. Then I do 14 minus 6, which gives me 8. And then 8 minus 8 is just 0. So that leaves me with my final answer of 2 remainder 8s. Now I have to do my check as well so I can make sure my answer is correct. So I'm going to start by taking my divisor, 43, and I multiply it by my quotient of 2. So I do 43 times 2. 3 times 2 is 6. And 4 times 2 is 8. And as you can see, when I'm doing these problems straight across like this, or when I'm doing this multiplication in my standard algorithms, I try to do most of it in my head. But if that's difficult for you, there is nothing wrong with just setting up off to the side in your notes a problem that looks like this, 43 times 2, do the math, and then put your answer down. There's nothing wrong with that. So then I get 86, and now I need to do 86 plus my remainder of 8. And again, if you just need to put it off to the side so that it looks like this kind of problem up and down instead of going to the sides, you can do that as well. 6 plus 8 would give me 14, and then 1 plus 8 gives me 9, which gives me an answer of 94 for my check, which matches my dividend, so I know that I am correct. So our final answer for this problem is 2 remainder 8. So not too bad so far. Now this next problem is going to be a little bit tricky because it's going to maybe throw us for a loop in the way that we estimate for this problem. So let's go ahead and erase this work and then move on to the back side of your worksheet so that you're looking at this problem, because we're going to be doing 3 problems together today instead of just 2. So for this problem on the back, we are dividing 84 divided by 23. So 84 divided by 23. I need to start with my estimate. So when I go to start with my estimate, I will write my little wiggly symbols, space divided by the other number. And this number 23, I usually like to round down my numbers. So 23, I'm just going to round it down to 20. So it's kind of like I'm replacing whatever number is in my ones place with a 0. So I round it down to 20. And then this 84 right here, I'm going to think about, well, what multiples of 20 are really close to 84? So I'll list out my multiples of 20. So 20, 40, 60, and 80. 80 is super close to 84. So that is perfect. We're going to do 80 right here. So remember, this is just changing our factors to different numbers that are close to each other so that we can figure out an answer that's going to be close to the correct answer, but it's not the exact answer. So now I do 80 divided by 20. I can just cross off those zeros. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that lets me know that my final answer is probably going to be close to 4. Remember, it's not always going to be exact. Now, when I go to solve this, I'm going to set up the problem 84 divided by 23. And just like I have in the past, I'm going to try this number 4 right here as my first part of my quotient. I'm going to try this out. So this is a problem where I might want to set it up off to the side and do 23 times 4 because I see that I'm going to have to do some regrouping. So I do 3 times 4, which is 12, so I carry the 1, leave the 2. 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 plus 1 is 9. Now, you're going to see that we just ran into a problem, and it's a good thing I did my standard algorithm up here for multiplication. Because what this is telling me is that 23 times 4 is 92. But do you see the problem that I have with my standard algorithm now? I can't do 84 minus 92 because that would give me a negative number. I can't do that. So I need to go back and retry a different number. So I'm going to erase this 92 and I'm going to go back to my quotient of 4. And I'm going to think, well, if I can't do 4, I don't want to go up to 5 because that number would be way too big. So I need to go down. So maybe instead of 4, I'll try 3 instead. So usually whenever you run into that problem, you just want to take 1 away and just continue working from there until you can find a factor that works for you. So let's try 23 times 3. And since there's no regrouping in this one, this is the problem that I'll just do in my head. So I'm going to do 3 times 3, which is 9. And then I do 2 times 3, which is 6, which gives me 69. And that is something I can actually subtract 84 from. So let's do 84 minus 69 now. I can't do 4 minus 9. So I make this 8 a 7 instead, and this 4 a 14. Then I do 14 minus 9, which will give me 5. And then after that, I will do 7 minus 6, which gives me 1. So I get an answer of 3 remainder 15. But you know, it's always important that we check our answers. So I come over to my check part. Remember, I take my divisor, multiply it by my quotients. I multiply these numbers. So 3 times 3 is 9, and 2 times 3 is 6. So that gives me 69. I take this answer and add my remainder. And if I can't do my work straight across like that, I can set up a little standard algorithm off to the side to help me out with this. And then when I add all this together, I get 84. I check, does this answer match what I started with? It does. So I know that 3 remainder 15 is my final answer. So as you can see, what we're doing over here, or what we're doing over here, is pretty much exactly the same from lesson 19. The only difference is the way that you are estimating. You're not just copying down this number here and then finding the multiples of that. You're changing your numbers, you're rounding them just a little bit, but you can kind of break the rules of rounding to help you out if you need to. So You are going to be trying this problem, 57 divided by 29 now. Remember, you need to estimate, you need to solve, and you need to check your answer as well. Remember, you can break the rules of rounding a little bit, so maybe you can round this 29 up to 30, or if you want to try it down to 20, you could also try that as well. So, good luck, and if you need any help, please let me know.